Hi guys, welcome and who dat? I'm Joe, and today I'm going to bring you the results of 10 different mock drafts that I've done in the last couple of weeks. I've been doing mock drafts for months now. I have 7 videos on the channel that break down 8 different mocks that I've done. And I figured in this video I would just show you the results of 10 mocks that I've done in the last, I want to say month. The oldest one dating back to right before the combine, but most of these I've done in the last couple of weeks. So it's the results of 10 different mocks. And this way you can see the way I'm thinking, what positions need to be addressed, where they need to be addressed. Of course, I have my favorite players that I always lean towards, but as I'm presenting these results, I'll try to give you a couple of more options, the same position group around the same area in the draft, so that if one of my players isn't one of your players, you'll still have some options there, But basically, it's the results of 10 mocks where in 9 of them I did trade down in the first round. And so this is the deal. The Saints don't ever trade down. So hopefully you can accept these mocks for what they are, basically to show you what happens if you acquire mid-round picks and how you can address, multiple needs. But honestly, quite honestly, even though I'm the king of trading down, in the last couple of days, with the mock draft simulators settling in on where these final player rankings will be, and the evaluations of these players, becoming complete, I'm starting to think that trading down in the first round might be a lot riskier than I thought before. So I'll do one more video for sure before the draft, talking about, how I think the Saints should approach this. But let's take a look at my 10 mock draft results and see how trading down and addressing offensive tackle early has worked out. So the one thing I can say about all of these 10 results is I did address offensive tackle with my first pick in all of these. Now, I've done a couple of mocks where I didn't address offensive tackle with the first pick, but it is a common theme, and I think it's something that the Saints should definitely do. We need a starting caliber offensive tackle, preferably one that can play on either side of the line. You can address right tackle and then left tackle later on. The major needs for this team going into the draft will be offensive tackle, and I think wide receiver, defensive tackle. And I think you need to double up on the offensive line and defensive line. I think those are your major positions. Offensive tackle and at least one more offensive lineman. I wouldn't mind 2 more. I wouldn't mind 2 tackles and a guard. That would make 3. And then I want at least 1 defensive tackle that can stop the run. And I would like another defensive lineman. I'm leaning towards a defensive end that can stop the run. But if we get an edge rusher, that's fine. As long as we get a defensive tackle in the middle that can play multiple downs, early downs, late downs, in the middle that can stop the run. And we also need secondary pieces. We need a safety that can play in the box or a nickel cornerback. So yeah, that's like 7 positions right there that I think the Saints desperately need. And I'm not even factoring in a running back that would be good in our new system, a tight end, which we desperately need on this team. So yeah, overall we probably have a good 9 positions that need to be addressed. That's why I think trading down is a good option. If you don't trade down from your first round pick, it's going to be hard to acquire a lot of pieces. In the end, it's probably all moot because only the first couple of players you pick are going to end up starters, and everybody else is going to have to fight their way onto the team. I don't know how to feel about all of it, but here we go with my 10 mock draft results, and I have done dozens of mock drafts. I've done between 50 and 100, probably closer to 100. And this is just an example of 10. And the ones I'm going to present you, five I've taken 7 different offensive tackles with my first pick. So 5 different ones to start off, I'll show you, and then on 2 occasions I took Fashanu, and on 3 occasions I took Tyler Guyton. And we'll save those for last. So we're going to start with this one first, where I end up trading down in the first round, settling in on 24, and I take offensive tackle Amarius Mims out of Georgia. I have questions about his overall experience, so he is a risk. It looks like he's going to turn into a fine tackle and could possibly even play on the left side. But Mims is one of those where, when you draft a guy like Mims and you're starting to think, man, can he beat out Landon Young? I mean, obviously he's a better physical specimen than Landon Young, but Landon Young's got 3 years of professional experience under his belt, and Mims has 8 total starts in college. So, right around where you get to the bottom of the first round and you start talking about the later round tackles, there are questions. 2 months ago, I'd have told you Amarius Mims might have been good enough with the 14th pick, but it's all about fit. Overall, I think Mims is going to end up a good player. But yeah, in this scenario, trading down, and I traded down probably 3 times in the first round to acquire picks and stuff. This particular draft, I end up with 6 players in the first 4 rounds. That's basically what my intention is in trading down, is to try to get as many picks in the first 4 rounds as possible. In this one, I end up with 6 and only a total of 9 players. In the second round, I'm lucky. A.D. Mitchell falls. I end up trading up in the second round to acquire him with the 36th pick. A.D. Mitchell's one of those guys that I have my highlight marker on. He's supposed to go in the first round, but if he slips into the second round, that's a player I wouldn't mind trading up to go and get. I got him ranked right under Brian Thomas Jr. at wide receiver. And I think that A.D. Mitchell has the size, the ability to run block, that makes him a better player in the second round than a lot of the other receivers that are going to be there. I was looking for somebody with size as well, so if Mitchell's not available, I kind of immediately lean towards Keon Coleman or Xavier Legette at that point. But before Legette, you've got Ladd McConkey, you've got Roman Wilson, you've got Ricky Pearsall. There's a lot of average-sized guys who are pretty productive players that you could consider as well at wide receiver in the second round. But yeah, I love getting A.D. Mitchell if he falls into the second round, no matter how I can. Second round is a good place to address wide receiver and also defensive tackle, because if you don't get one in the second round, a defensive tackle, then they're hard to come by. And wide receiver kind of extends through the third round into the fourth round with really good players. So it has to be a special wide receiver, I think, if you're not going to take a defensive tackle. In this draft, Braden Fisk ends up at the top of the third round, and I end up grabbing him there. And I'm pretty excited about that. I usually focus on either Chris Jenkins or Rook Ororo or Javondre Sweat. And then Braden Fisk is right there. If any of those 4 guys are there at defensive tackle, you got to consider it in the second or third round, I think, pretty strongly. And then at the end of the third round, I grabbed Max Melton at cornerback because I think he's going to make an incredible nickel. And He's trending right now into the second round big time as an overall cornerback. So this must have been one of those drafts I did several weeks ago. You'd be hard-pressed to get Max Melton in the third round now. And my fourth round pick at safety, Cole Bishop, my favorite safety in the draft. He is a guy that I would target and go for. He's a guy I would trade up for. A.D. Mitchell's one of those wide receivers that I would consider that. And Cole Bishop's the safety. And right now, Cole Bishop's getting taken in the second round in these mocks, early third round. This is one of those older ones where I was lucky enough to get him in the fourth round. So I managed to get a nickel cornerback and a box safety. And then with my second, fourth round pick, I addressed offensive line again with Christian Mahogany, who's going to be a pretty good player. And so, yeah, I'm pretty stoked about that. In my last three picks, I grab a defensive tackle and Fabian Lovett, who's a run stopper. And so then now all of a sudden I've got Fisk, who can play either defensive tackle position, and I've got a nose and Lovett. So that's good. I grabbed Taj Washington in the fifth round at wide receiver. He's a small guy, but he plays bigger than his size, and he is a productive player. He's a guy that I probably wouldn't nowadays, coming into the draft right now, I probably wouldn't get Washington until the sixth round, but I like addressing wide receiver twice with two different types if I can. And Washington can probably return kicks. I mean, just watch his tape. He plays way bigger than his size. And yeah, he's pretty small. He's like 5'9", 170-something pounds. So, and then in the sixth round, I grabbed a tight end, Tip Ryman out of Illinois. I love grabbing a tight end anywhere in the fourth, fifth, or sixth, or seventh round. I love getting another piece of tight end. So in this draft, I end up with 9 total players, but I address the major needs. I don't manage a running back in this one, and I don't manage a second tackle, offensive tackle. But, okay, so that's that one, with Amarius Mims being our first round selection, and we're lucky enough to get A.D. Mitchell in the second round. Still grab a good defensive tackle in Braden Fisk, and we get 2 pieces in the secondary. Good stuff. So this next draft, 5, 6, 7, 8. This next draft, I had 14 overall picks, so this one's a pretty heavy one. A lot of acquisition of picks in this one. This is probably an older one as well, because I got Cole Bishop in the fourth round. And Talise Fuanga falls to the bottom of the first round. So I traded down several times in the first round, was still able to acquire Fuanga at offensive tackle. And right now I'm leaning towards him as the best player to take at 14. I think our biggest need is right tackle. If Olu Fashanu is not there, the left tackle out of Penn State with the 14th pick, but Fuanga is there, I think he's a better pick at right tackle than the others, and he would be the one to grab at 14. Yeah, in this scenario, he falls to 24. That is not going to happen. But it did in this draft, and the other improbability, A.D. Mitchell once again falls to the third round, and I make the move to get him with pick 34. And at the bottom of the second round, I grab Braden Fisk again. Those are my 3 top needs for the Saints: offensive tackle, wide receiver, defensive tackle. And if I can get those, I'm pretty happy. Having acquired mid-round picks, I was able to grab a second offensive tackle in the third round, and Patrick Paul falls into the third round in this one. I don't know if he can transition and be a good player into the system that we want to run, but as a pure offensive tackle, he shows a lot of promise. So I think he's too good to pass up with a late third round for sure, which is what I did here. It's kind of towards the middle of the third round here. And then a big defensive end in Brandon Dorlus at the end of the third round. I love grabbing a second defensive lineman if I can, a second offensive lineman, a second defensive lineman. And if I can get one of those big defensive ends, I will. Because I see Jordan retiring in a couple of years, and I want a big body on the line on early downs. I think stopping the run is important for this team. You have to stop the run first before you can rush the passer. So, like I said, lucky enough to get Cole Bishop in the 4th round, and so a lot of my needs are met at that point. In the 5th round, I grab offensive guard in Mason McCormick out of South Dakota State, and I like Mason McCormick. I also like their offensive tackle at South Dakota State, Garrett Greenfield, to fit into our system pretty good. And that great Tyrone Tracy Jr., man. Once he came onto the scene, so this mock was probably done right after the combine. So I got Tyrone Tracy. Then a bunch of 6th and 7th rounders. I end up with Idifuan Olufoshio at linebacker. I get Nehemiah Pritchett at cornerback. I get a great defensive tackle in Gabe Hall from a small school to add to the defensive line. And I grab another linebacker in Curtis Jacobs out of Penn State, who I think is going to be a solid guy. And then in the 7th round, I grab Jared Wiley, tight end out of TCU. And that's where I think Taj Washington would be a nice little pickup. The bottom of the 7th round. This is a really good draft, but 14 players is quite a bit. But my main goal in trading down is to focus in the first 4 rounds. I want at least five players in the first 4 rounds. Otherwise, I don't think the draft can amount to much. So in this one, we get 6. And we get Fuanga and Mitchell and Fisk. You got another backup tackle in Paul, a good run stopper in Dorless. My favorite safety in Cole Bishop. And then a bunch of pieces in the later rounds that you hope somebody can find a place to play. Either whether it's special teams or they're good enough to contribute and be a backup. All right, this next mock draft result has us taking Troy Fontenot with our first pick. And that's at pick 23. We did a lot of moving around in this mock too. So I think we end up with 13 players here. 13 overall players. And getting Fontenot at the bottom of the first round. Good stuff there. Once again, A.D. Mitchell's in the 2nd round. I wasn't going to make the move in this one, I don't think, but I ended up trading up with the Giants from 45 to 40 so I could secure A.D. Mitchell. And then with pick 51 in the 2nd round, I'm lucky that Jordan Morgan's still there because, he may be a tackle that, although a lot of people don't think he can start right away unless he plays guard, I think he fits into our system pretty good and that he could start a tackle for us. So I'm leaving a lot of optimism here for Morgan to be a good player. But you get Troy Fontenot, who can play guard or tackle. And I think he can probably play left or right tackle. So you have tackle covered. And then you get all of a sudden Jordan Morgan, who's going to be your left tackle. And now you have real options. Because Fontenot can be that left guard or the right tackle. Pick a spot and put him there. Hey, my Riley pit. There he is. My beautiful boy. Don't tell the rest of them. He's my favorite. He's going to want to crawl in my lap. Come on. You can get there. I swear. You can be comfortable. I'm looking at papers, though, little boy. So, all right. In the 3rd round, lucky to get Cole Bishop at pick 81. And then 3 picks later, I grab a faller in Jalen Polk, and he's one of my top receivers to get in the 2nd round. And yeah, at this point, too good to pass up in the 3rd round. And if you could score A.D. Mitchell and Jalen Polk in this draft, wow, that's crazy. Crazy stuff right there. In the 4th round, I focus on Cam Hart, cornerback, big outside corner. I've got my box safety now and would like to have a nickel, but Cam Hart's a pretty good player in the 4th round. And then I grabbed the tight end, Cade Stover. That's a good place to get a tight end in the 4th round. And right there, I'm pretty stoked, especially since, so that's 7 players in the first 4 rounds. And then I still have 6 players left to go, and I fill some needs. A defensive body, defensive line. Justin Eboigbe can bounce around, play the end or the defensive tackle. I didn't address defensive tackle in the first 4 rounds in this mod. I get Isaac Jurindo, the 9.9 relative athletic score stud, and that is another player that I would make a move to go and get. So one of the final videos I do before the draft next week will be the players that I want no matter what. And you guys know because you see me grabbing them all the time. A.D. Mitchell, Cole Bishop, and Isaac Jurindo, of course. In this draft, I am lucky enough to get Jarrian Jones at cornerback from Florida State at the bottom of the 5th round. So I got an outside corner in Cam Hart and a nickelback in Jarrian Jones and a box safety in Cole Bishop. Man, I love that. I love being able to fill all those needs with all of these players. And whether they make it or not, it's kind of like this low-level free agency period the Saints have, where at this point now, you can see where they're covering their bases. They have a backup offensive lineman. They have a big wide receiver now in St. Brown that can run block. They went and got a starting veteran in Cedric Wilson, who can play outside or slot. They got Stanley Morgan at wide receiver, who's a good secondary piece. So you see how the Saints are filling the spots. So whether Ugo Amadi becomes our nickel back or not, doesn't matter. He can play nickel. We have him on the team now. And I think the Saints need to get younger, and we need to fill spaces with players that can do things that we don't have players that can do. So grabbing a big outside corner early in Cam Hart, I think in the 4th round is a pretty good move because he's going to compete against DeJohn Wright and Fabian Wright, whatever, whoever those guys are on our team right now at outside corner behind Taylor and Adebo and Lattimore. So, yeah, I say you get a piece like that, Jarrian Jones. Does he become our starting nickel? I don't know. He's got to beat out Ugo Amadi. You tell me. I think he's got a pretty good shot. In the 6th round, I grabbed linebacker Jaylan Ford, and I like Jaylan Ford. I like his ability to be able to play all along the linebacking core. That's how I project him. One of the only players in the draft that I would trust at will, put it to you that way. And then I love getting another piece. We got 2 offensive tackles. So another piece on the offensive line, grabbing Brandon Coleman out of TCU at guard. And then because I was woefully neglectful on the defensive line in this particular draft, I grabbed Jordan Jefferson in the 7th round. He was by far the highest ranked defensive lineman left on the board. I don't particularly want to go get Jordan Jefferson, but in the 7th round, yeah, he might turn out to be a good plug-and-play backup on the defensive line. So I loved how I was able to address everything that we needed with this particular draft, except for defensive line. I mean, there's always something that you're not going to get. I mean, if you want to get 2 offensive tackles and a guard, you should. You want to get a couple of wide receivers, yeah, you could. I mean, to me, Jalen Polk's too good to pass up in the 3rd round. So I think at that point, I could have grabbed Tyler Davis out of Clemson at defensive tackle. I could have got McKinley Jackson at defensive tackle, but instead I went with Polk, who I have a high 2nd round grade on. So that's how these drafts go. That's why I like showing y'all a bunch of them, just to show you, well, shoot, I didn't have the depth at that particular spot in the draft for that particular position. So how did it all work out? Here's another mock result. In this one, I trade down as well. And at pick 24 in the 1st round, I end up getting J.C. Latham. Now, Latham to me has IQ issues, so I love his ability to move. I think he's going to be a good tackle. And I think if he sticks at one spot and focuses on it, he can get better. He did look like he was lost a bunch of times in college, and I think that's why a lot of people are down on him. I think good coaching, and he had pretty good coaching at Alabama, but Latham's a weird one to me. Athletic enough where I like his potential in our system. But that whole, Vincent Vega thing of looking for somebody to block on every other play, that scares me. In this one, you get J.C. Latham at 24. And then, yeah, I make a huge move to get back to the top of the second round because Johnny Newton's there. And in two of these mocks, Newton falls into the second round. That's not going to happen. I can't see that happening at all. But you never know in the draft. And if something like that does happen, do you make a move and go and get him? I did. I did. I said, second offensive lineman be damned. I'm going to get Jerzon Johnny Newton. And with my second round pick, I grabbed wide receiver Xavier Legette. In this mock, in the third round, I grabbed Cole Bishop because, at this point, he's becoming a hot commodity. I'm lucky to get him in the third round. And 4 picks later, I grabbed defensive end Marshawn Nealon, who in the last couple of mocks has been going in like the late second, early third. So, I love getting a big defensive end at some point, whether it's Brandon Dorlus or Darius Robinson or Marshawn Nealon. I like grabbing a big guy early if I can to stop the run. So Marshawn Nealon's here in the middle of the third round. And then at the end of the third round, I get Dominique Puny. Now, I like him. I like his ability to play tackle and guard. I think in our system at guard, he'll be pretty good. I have a second round grade on him, but I don't know if he can be a starter right out of the gate or not. I just love getting an interior piece if I can, especially a guy that can play tackle or guard. And if you don't address tackle specifically twice, I like to get a good piece early, that can flex. So in this draft, I end up getting Christian Jones in the 4th round, and so that all of a sudden gives me the option for Puny to play guard even more. In this draft, I grabbed Jalen Wright's too good to pass up in the 4th round. He's probably my second favorite running back after Jonathan Brooks in the draft. So if he's in the 4th round, I'm definitely grabbing him. I managed to get Cade Stover at tight end in the 4th round. And, of course, I love Christian Jones. Christian Jones has movement skills that I love. That kick slide thing that, some people can do and some people can't. He keeps his feet under his shoulders. He's never reaching or leaning. He always seems to recover pretty good. Jones' problem is that he keeps his arms out when he's blocking the whole time. It leaves his chest vulnerable, and it looks like he's holding a lot of the time. He didn't get flagged a lot, but in the league he will. So if he can learn how to keep his elbows in, keep his chest protected, keep those arms in, he's got the movement skill with his feet, and he's got pretty good IQ. That I think you take a chance on that guy, you develop him, you force him to play that way. Keep his arms in, you eliminate the holding, you eliminate getting attacked at your chest, and everything else falls into place perfectly with Christian Jones. That the movement skills I love. In this draft, in the 5th round, Michael Pratt's there, and almost every time, if Pratt's there in the 5th round, I go ahead and take him. I don't think the Saints are going to address quarterback, but if Michael Pratt is there, or I'm forgetting the other guy's name right now. That's supposed to go in the third or fourth round. You know, if one of them falls into the fifth round, then you go ahead and grab them. And I had so many picks in this draft, I figured, yeah. Anytime Pratt's in the fifth round, I'll grab him. I also grabbed Colin Carson at cornerback, who's a big body who can play man press on the outside. And then I get Jalen Ford again at linebacker. In the seventh round, I grabbed Jaden Crumedy out of Mississippi State, and he's a nose tackle, and he's going to be a good piece to put in the middle of the defensive line. And then Jaquan Jackson out of Tulane with my last seventh round pick. If you grab Jackson, you're going to grab a guy who's willing to run block, and he's fast. He can be slot. He can burn somebody on the outside, and I think he's got a lot of special teams potential. I like his ability to develop into a nice piece, a fifth wide receiver on a team, because of his willingness to run block. And yeah, we'll see what happens with special teams. So this draft was pretty good. I did not address nickel cornerback. And yeah, I think other than that, this one's pretty good. Got the box safety in Cole Bishop. So, all right, let's pull up another one. And this one I don't pick until the second round because I traded down so many times that I ended up trading out of the first round. I got 8 picks in the first 4 rounds, 15 total picks. And I also I indicated on this one, I have a third round pick that I acquired next year from Detroit. So not only do we have 15 picks here, or 14, 15 picks here, but we also have a third rounder next year from Detroit. So yeah, this all ended up pretty good to get out of the first round. In this one, Jordan Morgan's going to have to play tackle in this system, be good, and he's going to have to play out of his brains and start for us. Otherwise, it's kind of a wasted pick. It's a bad move to trade down if you don't get a starter out of it in the end. But I get Xavier Legette with the second round pick as well, and Morgan's going to have to turn into something. 2 picks in the third round in this draft where I grabbed Chris Jenkins at defensive tackle in the third round with pick 70, and I grabbed big boy Marshawn Nealon for defensive end at pick 86. This works out great for me. I love Jenkins. He's my favorite defensive tackle to take in the second or third round. So we address our needs here. I don't know if these players, Morgan, Legette, are going to be good enough to start right away. But yeah, we sure do have a bunch of picks after that, starting with Dominique Puny in the 4th round, Cade Stover at tight end, Jalen Wright once again falls to the 4th round, and I grab him, and Cam Hart, the big body on the outside at cornerback. So then in the 5th round, I get Tyke Smith, technically a safety, but he can play nickel corner for us, and that's important for me. And then once again, Christian Jones at offensive tackle. Like I said, you can go all sorts of routes in the late 4th, 5th round at offensive tackle. If you don't get Christian Jones, you can always get Garrett Greenfield out of South Dakota State. I think he'll fit good. You've got the right offensive tackle out of Penn State, who I think is way better than people are giving him credit for. And you've got the starting tackle from Michigan. I can't think of these guys' names right now. That's going to be a good player. Javon Foster, I think, is going to end up turning into a pretty good player. So there are a lot of offensive tackles you can take a chance on here in the 4th or 5th round. Just because I have Christian Jones doesn't mean, it gets old when I keep picking the same player over and over again. But you have options there. In this draft, Muhammad Kamara falls to the 6th round, and I got a 4th round grade, a round 4 grade on him. So I'm taking the edge rusher, the small edge rusher, and Kamara in the 6th round. And then, stockpiling with bodies in the 7th round with a big safety in Dominique Hampton, the big nose tackle in Fabian Lovett. I lean towards him in the late rounds. if I don't get a run stuffer early, and I did with Chris Jenkins. But Fabian Lovett, we need depth at defensive line. Tanner McLaughlin, I like his ability to transition into our system, so I like him in the 7th round if you don't get a tight end early. In this draft, I had so many picks, and I'd already grabbed Cade Stover. I thought Tanner McLaughlin was too good of a player to pass up at that point. Jared Wiley, anybody like that in the 7th round, Tip Ryman. There are 7th round tight ends, Eric All, if he falls that far, that are, potentially so good, you grab them. It's a 7th round pick, but Tanner McLaughlin might end up a 4th round type of talent. And Jaden Crumity, again, out of Mississippi State. I ended up getting 3 run-stopping defensive tackles in this draft and 2 defensive ends. So in this draft, I hit defensive line pretty hard. But like I said, we had 15 picks, so no first-round pick, but you can get a lot of bodies if you trade out of the first round. Not something the Saints would do. I wouldn't bet money on that. All right, those are 5 drafts so far, and now let me show you the 2 where I grabbed Olu Fashanu with my first pick. And in this one, I stayed put at 14. He was available, too good to pass up. You grab him. You got your offensive tackle out of Penn State. He's going to start. And Trevor Penning, figure it out. I don't know what we do with Penning if this happens, but Fashanu's our starting left tackle. In the 2nd round, I stayed put at 45 and grabbed offensive guard Christian Haynes. So now we have big-time issues because we have to make other kind of moves to acquire mid-round picks. In this scenario, I'm not sure what I did. I'm pretty sure at some point I traded away a pick next year. And I'm pretty sure I traded up with a couple of 5th-round picks at some point to make these moves happen. So I think what happened here is I traded away a pick next year to get a mid-round 3rd, and then I ended up trading down from that 3rd. Ended up grabbing a couple of 4ths, combining 5th-round picks and trading down in a 3rd. It looks like that's what I did here. But yeah, your top 2 players here are going to be Fashanu and Haynes, and they're going to have to start for you. And I'm going to move Haynes to left guard, and that's your new left side right there. Wow. That could be how we do it. You want to stick and pick at 14 and 45? How about a left tackle and a left guard? In the 3rd round, I grabbed the big body defensive end to stop the run. In the 4th round, I'm lucky to get Cole Bishop and Ben Sinnott, who's one of my favorite tight ends. And then I have to start plugging holes with the rest of the players. I grabbed the 2nd offensive tackle in Christian Jones. I grab a wide receiver in Luke McCaffrey, who is probably a 4th round pick and a really athletic guy. If he's in the 5th round, it's a steal. Dylan Loeb, or Lobby, or however you say his name, out of New Hampshire. He's my running back choice here. He's going to fit our system great. I get Jalen Harrell in the 6th round out of Michigan. It's going to be a great edge rusher. He should go way earlier than this. Too good to pass up in the 6th round. And yeah, because I didn't address wide receiver early, I grabbed McCaffrey in the 5th round. I'm going to go ahead and grab Ryan Flournoy, the relative athletic score phenom, small school guy. And in the 7th round, I grab a cornerback in Miles Harden, who was great at the combine. I see him in the 7th round all the time and tempted to get him because of his athleticism. So overall, pretty good. I address offensive line very early. And although I don't get a run-stopping defensive tackle here, overall I think we hit some needs. The box safety in Cole Bishop is one of my favorites. I don't know if Miles Harden's going to play nickel or not, but that wasn't a bad draft. You pick at 14, you pick at 45, and there's not much else you can do. I managed to get 3 other picks in the first 4 rounds. So 5 picks in the first 4 rounds, 11 picks total. That's a possibility if you stick and pick. Okay, so the next draft I did that I'm going to show you that has Olu Fashanu going to us, I actually traded down from 14, got down to 19, and Fashanu was still there, so I didn't trade down anymore. I take Fashanu at pick 19, and then Johnny Newton falls into the second round in this one again, so I trade up from 45 to grab him at 35. So you got an offensive tackle and a defensive tackle. You know, Newton, look, he can play the nose. He's just a better 3, but too good of a player to pass up. He might be a better player than Bresee. I'm not going to pass him up in the second round. I'll trade up and get him if he's in the second round. In the third round, I grab big defensive end Brandon Dorlus, and then I grab a special wide receiver in Malachi Corley. Then in the fourth round, I go ahead and grab Cedric Van Pran because he's the best interior offensive lineman left. Whether I move him to guard or not, I don't know. I wanted another offensive lineman, and he was by far the best one available. Then I grabbed Ben Sinnott. In the fourth round, I'm going to grab either Cade Stover, Ben Sinnott, or Theo Johnson at tight end if they're there. And that's if I don't address tight end in the third round with either Jatavian Sanders or, take your pick. Some of you guys want to get Bowers with the first round pick. So there are tight ends you can get in the third and fourth round. In the fifth round, I grab Bucky Irving at running back because I think he's a third round guy into the fourth round, and he's too good to pass up in the fifth round. Once again, you cover your bases with offensive tackle, whether it's Garrett Greenfield or Roger Rosengarten, or in this case, once again, Christian Jones. I grab another interior player in Mason McCormick in the fifth round, who's going to be a guard. And so now, hey, you want to move McCoy to guard and put Van Pran at center? You want to move Van Pran? You want Van Pran to be a backup center, maybe your future center? You got another interior offensive lineman now, so that makes 4 offensive linemen in this draft. I grab wide receiver Jamari Thrash in the fifth round. Too good to pass up at that point. His separation in the wide receiving class was pretty big between him and everybody else left. So I grabbed Thrash. Then, yes, of course, I get desperate for a secondary piece if I don't grab one early. So that's when you'll see me grab someone like Nehemiah Pritchett in the 6th round. Nelson Caesar, the edge rusher out of Houston, and he could be a very good player and a steal. But I wouldn't take a chance on him in the 6th round, 5th round, 6th round, 7th round, unless there's nothing else there going on. So in this instance, I take a chance. Caesar may turn into a pretty good edge rusher. He was really good in college. Then in the 7th round, I grab a big safety, Dominique Hampton. Once again, if I don't grab safety early, I kind of look for a guy that has size. So I'll take the kid from Texas Tech, or in this case, Hampton, who I kind of lean towards. 6'3", 215 pounds, big safety. The Saints love that. Then Bub Means, the wide receiver out of Pittsburgh. I had grabbed Malachi Corley earlier. And then Jamari Thrash, who's a 6'1 guy. So I wanted to get a size guy in Bub Means. I think he's 6'2". And then Jared Wiley at tight end once again. Grabbing Ben Sinnott is one thing in the 4th round, but a guy like Wiley's got too much ability to pass up in the 4th round. 15 players in that one altogether, and I think I only traded down once in the 1st round. So that's a crazy draft. I think we managed to address a lot of needs, though. You find the pieces, and like I said, maybe Hampton isn't a good safety, but what do? You grab pieces in free agency and you hope they work out. You hope Jonathan Abram is your safety. You hope that Jordan Howden Tyrann Mathieu are going to work out. You hope Jonathan Abram can be your nickel. Maybe he can play some in the box. Maybe Dominique Hampton with size can come in and compete for that spot. That's what I'm looking for, pieces. I like having multiple players. I would like for the Saints to have at least 10 players in this draft when it's all said and done. 12? Yeah, something like that. So in this next one and the last three I'm showing you, we trade down. Oh, way too much. And I'm gonna do a few more here where I don't trade down. But in these scenarios I've been showing you, getting to the 24th pick in the first round, usually the only tackles that are left are Jordan Morgan and Tyler Guyton. You got to hope those guys work out. So in this draft, I end up with only 10 players. At pick 24, I get Tyler Guyton at offensive tackle. This is another one that Johnny Newton falls. I don't make a move at this point. I stick and pick at 45 because when I traded down in the first round, I acquired a bunch. I get Johnny Newton at pick 45, which is crazy. And then Xavier Legette, once again, is there at wide receiver. In the third round, Jatavian Sanders is still there, and he's too good to pass up in the third round. So that's like a second receiving option, an X-factor, special type of guy. He's not a complete tight end, but he could be a very special player in our system. And then in the fourth round, I go offensive lineman twice with Dominique Puny and Mason McCormick. In the fifth round, the running back of choice that's too good to pass up in the fifth round this time is Marshawn Lloyd. Then in the sixth round, I double dip at tackle again. Like I said, I'm going to do that. And if it's Christian Jones every time, I'll grab him. And Ryan Flournoy, I start to look at wide receiver. What did I get before? A big guy in Xavier Legette. Okay, so we have the option to get something special. Ryan Flournoy has that relative athletic score that I just can't turn away from. So, and another guy in the seventh round, defensive tackle Logan Lee, 6'5", 286 pounds, I think, at the combine. So he's not big enough to be a nose, not quite, but his relative athletic score is through the roof. And I'm starting to think Logan Lee's one of those guys that's way too good to pass up without drafting late in the draft. Saints love relative athletic scores, so Flournoy and Lee fit the bill here. That's a pretty good one. You hope Tyler Guyton shows up. You hope Guyton can turn into a starter. And, my position has always been in this draft, you're a good 7-8 deep at offensive tackle of players that have enough ability to at least compete on our team. And we have desperate needs. Technically, we have 7 guys on our team right now that can play offensive tackle. But none of them are any good. And Tyler Guyton, whether people think he can be a starter or not, they don't think Penning's a starter. I don't think Ramczak's going to stay healthy. No one thinks that Landon Young is going to be our starter. Oli Udoh, So you're saying that Tyler Guyton can't be as good as Oli Udoh? That's what you're saying. So, no, I'll trade down and grab Guyton and expect him to start ahead of Oli Udoh because that's all we got. That's the way I look at it. All right, here's another one where we trade down until pick 24 and end up grabbing Tyler Guyton once again. In this one, I trade up from 45 because Graham Barton's there, and I'm covering my bases. Wow, that's a great 1-2 punch with Guyton and then Barton. I finish up the second round with Jalen Polk at wide receiver and then Chris Jenkins at defensive tackle. And this is a draft that I love. I love this draft. Give me this one all day long. 3 number 2s, and you cover all those needs. Interior offensive line, wide receiver, and defensive tackle with a run stopper. Plus you got your first pick in an offensive tackle. Great. I love this draft. Cole Bishop was there. At safety, it would be damn perfect. But he wasn't, so I grabbed Javon Bullard out of Georgia instead. And then wrapped it up in the fourth round with tight end Theo Johnson. I mean, does it get any better than that? I love that draft. Cole Bishop, instead of Javon Bullard. I mean, come on. I'll take this in a heartbeat. Then in the 5th round, Luke McCaffrey, too good to pass up. Isaac Girindo with the great relative athletic score. Christian Boyd, who's going to be a great nose tackle. Now we've got 2 defensive tackles in this draft. And I double dip at tackle again, offensive tackle, with Garrett Greenfield. Now, Graham Barton can play tackle, too. Graham Barton can play guard and center, too. So, you know, you have that option. I like that, grabbing a guy that can play guard and tackle. And then if something happens later on in the draft, then you get another piece. Then, you know, it makes it more complete. Barton at this point is going to be our left guard. And now we got Garrett Greenfield as depth at offensive tackle. Tyrone Tracy Jr. I already got Isaac Girindo at running back, so I grabbed Tracy because he can play wide receiver and running back. He's going to be a special piece. I like grabbing at least one special piece. That can be a running back. It can be a wide receiver. It can be a tight end. You know, in this case, I grabbed a complete tight end in Theo Johnson. But in the 5th round, if Jaheim Bell's still there, he's a special piece, tight end, but he can fit and do something else. Or, you know, Dylan Lobby, the running back. In this case, you know, in this draft, I grabbed Tyrone Tracy. I love grabbing a piece like that can play in different positions in this offense. It sounds exciting to me. In the 6th round, I grabbed a big defensive end in Brendan Jackson. Love it. And Decamerion Richardson out of Mississippi State is there in the 6th round. Big cornerback. Love it. Great combine. And, yeah, too good to pass up. That's the kind of cornerback I'm looking for if I don't address cornerback early. Someone like Decamerion Richardson or Nehemiah Pritchett. And in the 7th round, I get steals with Logan Lee with that relative athletic score. And speaking of relative athletic score, Mark Perry, the safety out of TCU, has a phenomenal relative athletic score. Yeah, and I'm going to grab 2 pieces here at the end. Positions of need with high-level athletes, and you hope that the game's not too big for them at the next level. They're 7th round picks either way. So 15 players taken in this draft. But yeah, I absolutely love that top 6. If it was Cole Bishop instead of Bullard, it would be damn near perfect. That's what I do. I got one more to show you, and this is the craziest one of all. This is the one where I decided to try my best to beat the simulator because I figured it out. And, you know, when reality comes, you never know who's going to fall. You never know who's going to be there. These simulators are easy to beat. You can always expect certain players at certain times. Brandon Dorlus is always there in the 3rd round. You can always get Christian Jones at the end of the 4th round. You can always get Isaac Girindo in the 5th round. I mean, it's obvious. You just wait and you know they're going to be there. And if that's the way the draft works, great. But when Girindo gets picked in the 3rd round this year, you're going to be screwed. You better have a bunch of favorite players that can do anything and everything. So I beat the system with this one, and you can do it in every simulator. You just trade back one spot with the team behind you. So we go from 14 to 15, and I end up grabbing like a 4th round pick. Then I go from 15 to 16, and I grab another 4th round pick. And eventually you start getting enough 4th round picks where when you trade back just one from 18 to 19, you throw in one of those 4th round picks, and they're giving you a 3rd round pick. And you might end up trading 1 or 2 spots. I beat the system this way by just trading back one at a time and then packaging picks after that. I did that just to see how crazy it could get and how these simulators are flawed. So I end up trading down 23 times. I end up trading up 8 times for a total of 31 different trades. And I think I end up with 21 players. So this is the crazy video game version, but the last one I saved, the funnest one, where I end up with 10 picks in the first 4 rounds 21 picks total. Fun, right? So with the 25th pick in the first round, I grabbed Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle. With the 34th pick in the second round, I grabbed wide receiver Ladd McConkey. With the 46th pick in the second round, I grabbed quarterback Bo Nix. With pick 48 in the second round, defensive tackle Chris Jenkins. 3 picks in the third round, I grab a big defensive end in Brandon Dorlus. I grab a great cornerback in Chris Abrams-Draine, who I think can play nickel. Then I grab a security blanket in Dominique Puny that can play guard or tackle. Now, I grabbed 21 players in this crazy draft and didn't grab a second offensive tackle. So, as crazy as this is, I just started grabbing players left and right and didn't even dawn on me that Puny was the only backup tackle that I grabbed. And if I could do this crazy one again, I would definitely grab another tackle, especially in the 5th round. But in this draft, Cole Bishop falls in the 4th round. I grab him. I grab Ben Sinnott at tight end. And I also grab McKinley Jackson, the big defensive tackle, to add to the line. So 10 picks in the first 4 rounds. I get 3 defensive linemen, 2 offensive linemen, a wide receiver, a wide receiver, a quarterback, a tight end, and my beloved safety. Wow, yeah, that's crazy. That's how you can do it. Sure, I'll grab Bo Nix in the second round if I have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. And then in the 5th round, I have 5 picks. I grab backup offensive guard Javion Cohen out of Miami, Isaac Girindo at running back, Jalen Ford at linebacker, Ryan Flournoy at wide receiver, cornerback Jerrion Jones at cornerback. And so, yeah, now I got 2 nickelbacks. And then 6th round, Gabe Hall, defensive tackle, Idifuan Olufashio at linebacker in the 6th round. And then 4 7th-round picks. Defensive end Cedric Johnson's not going to be here in the 7th round. Love that guy. Would take him in the 5th round for sure. Tip Ryman, another tight end that I can throw in along with Ben Sinnott in this draft. I grabbed safety Evan Williams, who I don't think the Saints are interested in. But I'm going to grab as many players as I can. I mean, he was the highest rated player at the time. And I still grab another cornerback in Dwight McGlothern at the very end of the 7th round. So, yeah, that was the craziest draft of all. 21 picks total. No one revamps their team like this. It's a video game at this point. Hi, Bellamy. This is my bellboy. I'm so beautiful. And there you go. 10 results from 10 mock drafts. I'm showing you how I'm doing all of it. And I'll do a couple more videos before the draft, breaking down what I think the major positions of need are and taking into consideration how the draft is, the player pools leading up to the draft right now at the crunch time, what I think the best overall scenario would be for the Saints. So subscribe to Rosenfeld 10 for those videos. I cover the Saints all offseason long. I also cover their regular season games with a preview and a review every week. Subscribe to my channel, like the video. I need some traction. I'm a Saints fan. I'm not a special reporter or special clairvoyant. I get stuff wrong just like everyone else. But I'm your coworker or your neighbor. You come over to my house, we drink some coffee. Yeah. And we talk about the Saints. And it's fun. And I hope you enjoyed it. Leave your comments so you can get your word in. I love reading my comments. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later.